Welcome to another edition of the Top Dog Talk podcast. Man, it tripped me up here since we so disappointed. You have me, Dan Kiley, along with my co-host, the ghost of James Franklin, Kobe Pierce. Listen, we got a lot to talk about. It's a loaded show. Harrison's running a little bit late. He'll jump in here just a second. Listen, from the top, Georgia wins the game 20-10. I know that there was a lot of people who were really happy that Gunnar Superman in the end zone to cover that spread. The funny part to me is that Kirby actually mentioned that in the press conference that he should have taken the knee, but there was probably some people happy. But anyway, Kobe, how are you tonight? It's Sunday night, coming off a Big Dogs win. How are you feeling tonight, sir?
Dan, what's up, buddy? We're good, man. It's one of those weird things where it feels good to win a football game, right? I think that supersedes everything, and I feel bad for you if you're a fan of the University of Georgia, if you're a fan of any sports team, that you care more about the way it looks and how you win versus winning itself, right? Like it's all about. It can be pretty, it can look pretty from start to finish, but sometimes you got to take the ugly wins, right? Like that has been this football team the past 2 to 3 seasons of, listen, man, the depth's not there. The necessarily that like start to finish killer isn't there, but man, they're just an unbelievable second half team. The adjustments that are made, the way the fight continues to go for them, you have to be excited. You have to love it. They're the cardiac canines, if you will. I think I've seen people use that on Twitter. Like they are going to give you everything they got till the very end, and if it's enough, great, and if it's not, it maybe isn't sometimes in that second half comeback. But always good to win again over against our friends over at Auburn. So I think somebody said that's 9 in a row against them and Tennessee now, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, I want to touch on something real quick that you talked about. You said making the adjustments, where Kirby in his press conference right after the game said they made no adjustments, which is complete bullshit. We understand that. Like, yes, you do make adjustments, but I think the misconception is the adjustment is these are the plays that we're running, but we've got to just kind of alter it a little bit, right? There's no teaching going on. There's no recalibration or running brand new plays. And I think that's what he means. And I'm laying this out, and I really want you to kind of hammer in on it because you've been in the room. You understand it more than anybody, okay? So when he says no adjustments, I think what he means is we're not calling new plays. We're not running new things. It's just we're tweaking what we're already doing. And then, you're able to figure out some tendencies and stuff like that. So am I on to something where – the adjustments are just tweaking what we're already doing as opposed to not calling new stuff, and that's why he says no adjustments?
Yeah, I think it really just depends on like what he views as an adjustment versus, as a fan or as a media member or, another coach. I think it's just so interesting. Like, swapping quarterbacks at halftime is an adjustment, but also knowing that you may try to run and attack the perimeter on runs more than inside zone is also an adjustment, even though like you haven't changed any part of the game plan. You maybe just have identified something that you would like to maybe try to take advantage of in the second half. I agree with you. And I think he later in that interview, he kind of talks about like, I guess we did make adjustments in like the plays we ran and the aggressiveness in which we called the defense, which I think you really saw in the second half. They got after the quarterback a little bit more often. They took a few more chances. Like you're saying, that's an adjustment. Like to cognitively make that decision that we're going to have to blitz a little bit more is an adjustment. And I thought it was cool to hear him say. I feel like he doesn't. You don't always get the head ball coach to admit things, but he was like, they threw some things out there this week that we hadn't seen. We hadn't repped. They haven't put on film. He said they used the bye week to install brand new formations and concepts and plays that gave us trouble. And they did. And like he said, after seeing it run a time or two, then we're able to coach the guys, tell them how we want to play it. And I think that's what you see in the second half, right? Is you're playing those same rocket motion sweeps, dunk offs to the tight end from the blitz and corner. You're able to play those better than maybe you were at the first half.
And another thing that something that struck me, and we'll kind of get into some like maybe what kind of struck you a little bit. When he said in the press conference, when they asked him about the first half issues that they've been having, where they're not starting as fast as they want to start, or they're not ready to roll, right, so to speak. I felt like when he said, "I don't know," I felt like that was a genuine answer. And I don't think that was not wanting to answer the question. I don't think that was wanting to. I honestly think when he says, because I've been in a room where, a coach will talk to another coach and be like, I don't know. And I really felt like that was really genuine. Like, I know he puts on a show sometimes and he can be a jerk sometimes and all those types of things. And just the way he answered that question, I think he was being completely genuine, where I really feel like that they feel like they're having great weeks of preparation. They're ready to go. That they've covered all the bases and they're just not able. And I think personally, me, Dan, I think the answer is that they're just not executing well in the first half. I don't think it's necessarily that they're not prepared to play. I just don't think the executions is good, because the execution in the second half was pretty friggin' good. I don't remember anything. Oh, yes, I do. There was one pass in the fourth quarter where it should have been a touchdown. I think it was a post route to Singleton, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Singleton, and it was just overthrown, and he wasn't able to make the play. But if that was a well-thrown ball, that's a walk-in touchdown. So outside of that, I didn't see any blown coverages. I felt like they were running the football. So I think the answer is it's just purely execution. But I think Kirby was being genuine when he said he didn't know. How does that strike you?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, it is frustrating because every team brings about new challenges. I think that's one of the pros of coaching and one of the cons of coaching. You coach 10 seasons at the University of Georgia. No one team is like any other team, right? Like, he's had 10 very distinctively different teams. And this team, for whatever reason, it almost feels like they have to play from behind to wake up fully. And luckily they're good enough to kind of get that jump start going. The problem is like he said, we're not going to be this high powered, consistent offensive drive team. So we're going to run the ball. We're going to get the ball to third and short. We're going to run high percentage plays. We're going to be the kind of offense that's going to take 8 to 10 plays to score most of the time. That I don't always love to hear, that the head ball coaches pretty much realize that at game 6 in the year. But like he's saying, it's great that they're having those drives, those long, deep, methodical drives. Like he said, the problem is the defense is also giving those up. When I think about like Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama. Alabama started with 2 12-play plus drives for touchdowns. It's not, death by 1,000 cuts is fine if you can get them to kick field goals or maybe get a turnover. But if you give up a 14-play drive that takes 8 minutes that ends in a touchdown, sometimes it would have just been better to have given up 3 plays that end in a touchdown and kind of reset yourself, not just getting beat over and over and over again. And I think it's going to come down to maybe him or Schumann taking a chance and playing a little aggressive. I think that we definitely have a tendency defensively to kind of play zone, try to play very base defense early to see kind of what we're going to be against, to not take that big risk of like, we're going to blitz the corner here, and if they throw the ball, we're just screwed. We definitely play a very, not a safe defense necessarily, but like you're saying, the kind of defense that is obviously able to give up some yards. Teams are just executing really well, and we're not making some quick plays when they're there. Like you're saying, I would expect the same against Ole Miss this week. At this point in the season, there's no reason to not think that whatever team you play, odds are you're going to give up a touchdown on the first drive or some points. It's just kind of the way this defense has bent in the early stages.
Yeah, I think one of the things he talks about that they're not an explosive team, they're not going to be able to chase down points. I think that's a point of emphasis this week specifically because Ole Miss has the potential to score. But Pete Burns posted on Twitter just the standings, basically the standings in the SEC, and he's just talking about how this is going to get really mixed up over the next couple of weeks. But one of the categories they have on here is points for. Georgia scored 120 points. The closest team to them is 116. The next highest is 95, and that's Ole Miss. Now, interestingly enough, Tennessee has given up 109 points already. Georgia's given up 89, and the closest to them is 77. So, yeah, they're scoring. They've scored more points than any other SEC team in conference play right now. I do think that comes with an asterisk. They played one more game than anybody else, but they've also given up the second most points. So, how often in the past have we looked at Georgia's defense and saw that they're giving up a lot of points? It just didn't happen. So I think you're on to something where this is just a really different team. And, multiple group chats reading the timeline, the first half of last night, it was pretty miserable for pretty much everybody. Even the most logical, cool-headed fans that I know, and I know a lot of them, and I'm not pointing fingers, Kobe. I'm just saying, even the most level-headed people who are not really emotional and don't ride that roller coaster, pretty frustrated in the first half because that's about as bad as I can get. I think that the good thing for us is that even though Auburn was clicking on every freaking cylinder known to man, they were not able to really extend the score, which is kind of crazy because it felt like, and of course this is just what it feels like, but it felt like they were able to do whatever they wanted to, whenever they wanted to early in that football game. And if they had been able to put up 21 points or something like that, I think it could have been a much different outcome, right? Before we were able to put points on the board. And obviously going up 17-0 would have been really bad, but they didn't. And then, you got to give Georgia a lot of credit. And I think Kirby mentioned this during his press conference also, is that they didn't just automatically put 3 points on the board for us. We had to go 99 3/4 yards because that ball was pretty much on the 1-inch line when they took over. They had to get it out of the shadow of the end zone. Give Gunner credit for not fumbling that snap in the end zone or anything like that because they don't go under center all that much. And it is very different. But then also give McCray a lot of credit for being able to bounce that one outside and get, I guess it was like 10 or 11 yards, but enough for a first down, and then allowed them to start operating. Now, I will say that last 2 minutes of that, the last 2 minutes took 36 minutes to play, which is absolutely insane. That review of the goal line was over 15 minutes long, and then there was a penalty on almost every single play on the way down to the 3 points. It was absolutely absurd how bad that last 2 minutes was of football. And across the board, it was talked about just ad nauseum about how bad that last 2 minutes was. Now, listen, we got to talk about it because everybody else in the world is talking about it. When I saw that live, I felt like that ball. Hello, Harrison. We just now are getting to the fumble. So we've talked a little bit about Kirby's press conference, some of the things that he talked about, and now we are getting to the fumble. So you are here for the meat and potatoes of this conversation.
I missed the rice, damn it.
Kobe, I felt like that ball was moving in his hands before it got poked out. And I think that is the main reason why he wasn't given the touchdown. But in full speed, I thought for sure he scored. Everybody in my house thought for sure he scored. So what was your take initially when you saw it live and then when you started to watch the replays, which we saw 4,000 of them? So what was your initial take?
I think for me, right, when you watch the TV copy at first, like you're kind of behind him. It looks like the sneak's good. Like his body definitely gets into the end zone. But as you're watching, it becomes one of those things that good or bad for Auburn, good for Georgia, the play on the field was called a fumble, right? Referees don't come in throwing the arms up, touchdown Auburn, hit the confetti. They confer, they get together, and they go, hey, I got a fumble. I don't have him crossing the goal line. I got a fumble. They go under the hood. They look at it. Like you're saying, we're talking about pixelated football, way zoomed in from the pylon cam, that is moving, that we definitely see is punched 2 separate times. It doesn't look like he has firm control. It's not a perfect angle down the goal line either. So it's very hard to tell when the ball crosses the goal line and does he have full control of the ball, right? Or does he have partial control? Is he already beginning to lose control? I feel like at that point, right, like as a referee, you can't go, well, we had fumble as the call, but now looking at this grainy picture, I'm really confident we were way wrong. I think that people don't realize, like, it takes a lot to overturn a call like that, right? Like, I feel like opposite happens. Line judge comes in, throws the arms up. We go back and look at it. They're like, hey, there's not enough to overturn it. We're going to keep it a touchdown. Like, I really do believe that it was that bang, bang close of a play. The call on the field is what mattered. It's crazy. Trust me, right, as a Georgia fan, I understand what it's like being on the wrong side of an SEC officiating questionable call. My sympathies go out to you as an Auburn fan on that call, because it's just because old buddy was like, not too sure about it, is the difference between 17 and a fumble. Like you're saying, it was a great play. It's one of those things, like I told Katie, they're gonna have to maybe look at some point on quarterback sneaks where they're like trying to just break the end zone. It needs to be more like touchdown catches where the receiver has to like survive the ground. Like if you catch the ball going out of bounds and you have firm control, and then as you're going to the ground you lose it, like they call it incomplete. I also feel like on those plays that are so muddled like that, like quarterbacks got to come up with the ball in hand for it to be considered a touchdown on a football play. Like just the ability to like reach it out there and the ball didn't get knocked away, I think is something they should look at just on either side of that. To me, you should have to complete the act of scoring the touchdown. Obviously, he did not. So,
well, then
we'd be
there's the
interested
other
to hear
problem.
on y'all.
There's the other problem in terms of like, if we're looking to make the right call, which that's what replay is for. We want to make sure we get the right call. You have to have indisputable video evidence to overturn the call on field. And there was no indisputable video evidence either way, which is why the call was, what was it? They say upheld or confirmed. I forget what they said. Confirmed. Like the only other way that you can have indisputable evidence in this case, as I actually the right microphone, they need to have some like goal line technology like they do in soccer and like European football. They have, I guess, a device inside the ball now that tracks whether it breaks the plane of the goal. Like football needs that potentially now. Now, granted, do we trust it?
Tennis has Eagle Eye.
Do they?
Yeah, tennis has Eagle Eye, and they were the first ones to do it, and it is accurate to a millimeter.
See, and that's kind of where it's like, that's the only way it feels like where people won't get pissed off on both sides. Like, that's the only way to do this. Now, granted, it coming down to technology is going to piss people off.
Yeah.
Just like automated ball strikes, going to piss people off. But at the end of the day, both sides can be upset about that play. Georgia should be upset because in some ways, boys, it kind of felt like a 14-point swing because 7 one way and 7 the other. Somehow on one play, you had touchdowns taken off the board with both sides feeling like they scored touchdowns. Both sides.
the funny part for me is that it was sweet justice from when Cam Newton went over the top and he clearly fumbled. They gave him the touchdown anyway against Georgia. I don't know if anybody in the press box mentioned this last night, but there was no review back then. So it wasn't reviewed, and it was clearly a fumble, and Cam Newton got the touchdown and they won the game or whatever. But
isn't that amazing to say? Like, in the time that Cam Newton has played at Auburn and has retired from the NFL, like, there went from being no replay to us talking about, well, there should be a chip inserted in the ball, so we know exactly where that ball is.
Yeah. So, what do you want to talk about, Harrison? You're here now. You out of all three of us, you were in the press box last night. So, I guess my question to you would be, because you obviously hear the conversations that are around you. You don't have to name names or anything like that. But what were some of the narratives that were being spun up there, and how did they change throughout the night? I guess would be a question I would want to know.
Well, funny you ask, because I haven't been able to talk to anybody today. I've been trying to catch up on sleep for most part of the day outside of the little work that I've done. But behind us in the press box, I did tweet about this. Actually, my coworkers also tweeted about it. The people directly behind us it sounded like Auburn fans for most of the night. And I don't know what they did. I don't think they were traditional media. I think they maybe were like a podcast or radio. But there was a lot of we and us conversation when talking about the game, about Auburn. And I tell you what, the funniest, throughout that game, and it's up until that fumble, that's when it started to change. They started to start talking about, oh boy, here comes the downfall. That's Birmingham. Birmingham called it in. Auburn's getting screwed. It was funny. The narrative to their side was Georgia's not winning this game. The refs are giving Georgia this game. It was that on the fumble. It was that on the targeting. It was that on all of these holdings where apparently an Auburn player got tackled to the ground. I went back on the replay. Didn't see a player get tackled to the ground. But the narrative in that box from their perspective was Georgia didn't deserve to win the game.
Let me tell you.
I think that's been the narrative that I've seen on social media from some Auburn fans.
I think I know who you were sitting in front of.
Oh, do you?
I do. I think you were sitting in front of the two gentlemen announcing the football game, because that's exactly how it felt at home as well.
I wish, because I wish I was able to hear what they were saying, because I saw them catching a lot of heat.
Both of them sounded exactly like the gentlemen that were sitting behind you in the press box, because it was, man, Auburn got screwed out of the Oklahoma game. Little old Hugh Freeze never done anything wrong in his life, and now they're out here, they're refereeing against him. Needless to say,
taking out a family man, Kobe. They're taking out a
family man, just a good, God-fearing family man. Never done a thing wrong in his life. He's just getting the wrong end of the stick. And I think what kills me is if you look at Auburn's games this year against Baylor, against Oklahoma, against Texas A&M, they're a highly, highly penalized team. I mean, they've had double-digit penalties. They've had 9 penalties. So to say that they had 11 penalties last night, that's not somebody that's out to get you. That's been you all season. It's not like you – I would understand if you were like, we had 4 penalties, 5 penalties, 12 penalties. I'd be like, man, something's a little fishy here. But, it's one of those things. It's no different than targeting. I mean, the targeting, like I told Katie, it was like –
it was clear as day.
It was textbook. It was
crown of the helmet.
It was crown of the helmet launching to the head and neck area of another defenseless player. That's the whole reason the rule was created.
He was more defenseless than the player that apparently Cash Jones blindside blocked. That was not a blindside block.
No, that was a makeup call, 100%.
I'll say something about the blindside block, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But go ahead about.
So number 4, I don't know his name.
Kane Lee. He's actually Kristen Miller's high school teammate.
Should have been flagged for taunting 5 to 6 times in that football game prior to the targeting. There was, he was completely out of control all night long, and you could just see that coming. Now, listen, I understand he was playing with fire, passion, energy. Kirby, be proud. But you have to play under control, and he was out of control all night long. And I don't know how many times in the group text I said, I was like, that should have been taunting. And I hate taunting. I absolutely despise that penalty call. I think it's weak as hell.
The NFL's gotten real bad with the taunting calls.
Yes, but like when you stand over another person and MF them up and down, that's got to be called. That's got to be called. That's the I don't know. But
I kind of like the dynamic of this show because we get three. Like, so Dan was on the officiating side in terms of like being an umpire in baseball. Kobe was on the playing side, both at high levels, and I'm just like the neutral, like fan media perspective in terms of like, you know, I haven't been on either side of it at these levels, so I don't like both sides. I can see.
I'm with Dan on the taunting, 100%. You don't want somebody to taunt you, you got to beat them. Like if the man got you on clamps and has PBUs and you're falling down, you deserve what's coming to you. Like I know that it's in like the sportsmanship and the you know the nature of the game and all that stuff, but like if you're getting
there is a line.
There is, but like I guess standing over someone after a PBU, like. I mean, DBs are DBs. You know what I mean, Dan? Like those guys would celebrate. Those guys celebrate if a receiver. I mean, I'm seeing the seatbelt and the gentleman fell down. You know what I mean? Like, let's relax here a little bit.
All right, I'm glad we touched on the fumble and all that because I do think it's been the national narrative. It was the national narrative after the OU game. It's certainly going to be one after this game. That officiating's broken. They have some major problems, and this was a poorly officiated game, I think, on both sides. The fact that the final 2 minutes took 35 minutes to finish in the first half was awful. I mean, how many plays did we have blown dead right at the snap because they want to go back and redo it? And I'm like, I'm all for getting the call right, but at some point you're interrupting the flow of the game, and that's where the problem becomes in all of this. So, and I don't know, maybe I've already touched on that, and I'm sorry if I did.
No. I think the big thing about it that's weird is, again, I had to listen to the horrible announcers. So, their take on it.
I missed it then because like
dude,
I'm curious what it
Harry, was. For a man to have been an alumni of the University of Alabama, to have called that Auburn game, you would have thought that he went to Auburn the way that game was called. I mean, it was, and I don't know, maybe it's just me being old and grouchy, but it was definitely felt like a one-sided call all evening.
Hugh Freeze deep state.
I felt like that they became obsessed with, they talked about that Hugh is basically like, said a lot to the SEC office, filed a formal complaint. You know, obviously they apologized for the missed call. And I feel like that's part of the microscope of all those plays over and over and over again is because they've already been squeezed and had to file that apology once. It felt like they were really nervous going down the stretch of the last 2 minutes of getting a call wrong late. And man, you just got to let it roll sometimes as an officiating crew. Like, if it looks like a 10-yard completion to the tight end, like there was no reason to look at that. There was nothing in that video review that even looked close to him dropping the ball. I don't know why they called down at all. It's not like he bobbled the ball. Nothing. I mean, it was just like catch, ball on the body, first down. You know.
That play had already been going on for 2 seconds before they blew the whistle. I mean, Gunner was almost all the way to the sideline on a bootleg before they blew it dead. You're right. That last 2 minutes was just an absolute clown show. It was really, really bad. And, you know, it's one of the things in baseball or basketball, like because I did basketball for a long time too. I've never officiated football, but so we'll just take it from the basketball angle because there's more communication really in basketball. And one of the things that you do is, especially when you go to the NBA development camps and stuff like that, it's a lot of communication, a lot of talking. So, you know, as the play is going, you're talking, you know, to the players, and you know, you're kind of guiding them a little bit of what you're seeing and what you don't want, you know, to prevent having to blow that whistle. But what that does do is it opens that line of communication to where the players kind of know what to expect and they can operate within the rules. And I felt like those officials had so many opportunities to get control of that game through conversations, right? And if you've never officiated, then that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you're like, what do you mean by conversations? Like, are you going to stop? Like, no. There's opportunities to get things out there that you want heard and to have a little back and forth. It's very subtle, but it does happen. Obviously, you see the coaches chirping at the officials all the time too. But a lot of times the officials will say like, "Hey, listen, your guy's really close to getting that offsides. I don't want to call that. Make sure he's there." Or, "Hey, make sure your guy when he comes out here, he's checking with me every time. I don't want to have to call that." Because we saw a touchdown today in the Jacksonville Jaguars game, right, where Travis Hunter, his foot was lined up in the neutral zone, so they took a touchdown off the board. Officials don't want to call that stuff, and I know most people think they do. That most people think officials are awful and the worst humans on earth. And listen, there are some that are not great, but they don't want to. No official wants to call that bullshit. But a rule's a rule, and sometimes you got to call it. So I just felt like watching the game. There's so many opportunities to really get that game under control, and I felt like that was missed. And the byproduct of that is it was a very hard football game to watch. And from the Auburn side or from the Georgia side, very choppy, not a lot of rhythm, a lot of over officiating, in my opinion. And then when you did let them play, right, there were a couple of opportunities later in the game. Some went for Georgia, some went for Auburn, where they kind of let them play. That's fine, 100% fine, but that's not the way you were calling it earlier. And you can't kind of change it up like that. That's going back to the baseball thing. If you're going to call a ball, if you're going to call something a whole ball outside the plate a strike, okay. If you do it in the first inning, your ass better be doing that shit in the ninth inning because the players are going to adjust to it and they're going to operate. But if you're constantly changing what you're calling, then now you're causing a problem. And I just felt like that was the biggest issue is I didn't know what they were going to call. Every time there was a flag, I was like, fucking what now? So
I mean, the first two like big calls, the DPIs, the OPIs, I was like, man, I thought one of them, I think the one in the end zone was a little ticky tack. The one on Everett and then in the red zone, high red, I thought that was a little bit of ticky tack. I thought it was within 5 yards, just upon initial watch. But I mean, down the stretch, outside of that, I mean, look, I thought the first half, obviously, like Dan said, was a nightmare. Was poorly called, like poorly executed by the refs. Second half was a little bit more free flowing outside of the timeout controversy, which, look, even though this is a Georgia podcast, I'm going to say this. If it wasn't a timeout, then you probably should have given Georgia a delay a game. And I get it. In the end, it had no effect on the play because Georgia still missed the field goal anyways. So it was like a water under a bridge at this point. But yes, I think that's the one, if you're an Auburn fan, you should feel probably most aggrieved by in terms of.
So I think here's another perfect example, Harrison, of where you haven't watched TV copy. And so I'm going to chime in on this just a tad. Because what happens is narratives get pushed by announcers that have no idea what they're talking about. In the scheme of the game, right? It's third down. Kirby's running down. He's calling timeout. He is calling timeout, right?
He has the signal.
At first, that is not the argument, and that's where the announcers are lost and get lost, and they push a narrative really hard about, oh, he's just trying to tell the referees he's clapping. He's trying to tell, that line judge that he was just clapping. He's not trying to call a timeout. And he explains it later, right? But what you can see is he's running to call a timeout, and then he goes out to the official and says they are clapping. He is trying to convey a message to the officiating crew, hey, I've had to call this timeout because our guys can't get lined up because they're simulating our snap count. They're clapping. It's confusing our guys. It's making us take more time. They're not allowed to clap. For anybody watching, fun fact, you can't simulate the offensive snap count, whether it's verbally, whether it's just the clap. You just can't do it. It's defensive delay game, whatever. And so that's what the conversation is about between him and the umpires. The problem there becomes, somewhere in the communication amongst the umpires, it gets lost on it 100% should have been timeout Georgia, because he calls and is granted by the line judge a timeout. Then they all get together and meet, and he talks about, hey, I'm having to call timeout because they're clapping in the background. I don't know what happened that they didn't just then run the timeout. Like, tell coach, hey, we'll watch for it. We'll look for it. Timeout Georgia. Here we go. That's an officiating problem. That's not Kirby. I've seen people like, oh, Kirby's lying to these referees. Kirby's trying to trick these referees. He is two different schools of thought. He called the timeout, then he's telling them about the clapping and what he's worried about. It's not his fault then that the referees don't give the timeout. You know what I mean? So it was bad. The announcers harped on that for a good 30 minutes, that he is basically trying to spin the tale that he's not calling the timeout.
Which really sucks, because I do like listening to, like, I thought McElroy, I've listened to several McElroy and McDonough games, and I thought they do a good job. It does suck for them that Georgia fans are now turned off by them, because there is that perception, which in many cases, especially on social media, I think Dan's even said this on the show before, perception's reality in a lot of cases, and if that perception's there, that's what people think. And it's not just fans that I've seen talking about it. I've seen on Twitter, even prominent people in the media at other places talking about, man, like even former Georgia players like Kobe, yourself, saying, man, this is a rough crew, talking about it. But let's put, I guess, the officiating to bed, because I do want to talk about it. I want to dispel the narrative of, if there is any narrative about, hey, Georgia didn't deserve to win this game. I already talked about the slow starts. Y'all talked about the adjustments. If there's nothing else that says Georgia deserved to win this game, it's how quickly Auburn mentally fumbled after the actual physical fumble. They went into a shell. Shell.
Dan,
30 minutes.
Dan, tell them about that halftime interview that Harrison hadn't seen.
From one from Hugh Freeze?
From Hugh.
Hugh was so upset he was almost in tears, and he was not focused. Like, I think it was Booger in the halftime show on TV. Correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe it was the guy he was with, but I'm pretty sure it was Booger. Was like, I understand you're upset, but you have to get that locker room ready to play the second half, and
you can't be defeated.
Yet your attitude, the way that you were. Man, it was a really tough look. Like, I've seen Kirby upset. I've seen Nick Saban upset, but I've never seen them to the point where I was like, what is he going to say to the team in the locker room? Because I felt like I felt like he was going to carry that into the locker room and cry in front of them and be like, oh my gosh, this is not fair. We got, whatever. Like, you've got to be like, hey, flush it. It's over. There's still half a game left to play. We're winning 10-3. We get to stop right here. We're going to drive down the field, put it on their ass. We're going to be up 17-3. Like, it's not a big deal. But that is not the attitude that he had. Kobe, I know you're hot on this, so go ahead.
Dude, I have seen Harrison, and you're going to have to go back and watch it now, probably when you have time this week, just so we can talk. I have seen coaches give less emotional post-game loss speeches than how he talked at the halftime speech. I mean, you'd have thought Kirby Smart walked across the field and slapped him in the face, Will Smith style. I mean, like, he was all but in tears. He's like, we've done some good things, but if we could just maybe catch a break, get a couple calls to go our way, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I just have no idea how things can be so against us and all this. And it was like, I do think it was Booger that said, he's like, I hope somebody else is about to speak to the team at halftime. Yeah. Because Hugh's not in the mindset to do it. And it reflected, right? Like, when your leader panics, everybody panics. You don't have the guy in the portal era that can step up and say, hey, fellas, we're going to put the team on our back here, and we're going to be okay. Like, we won't let one play ruin this whole football game. But the problem is for them, you got a coach that's panicking. you got a quarterback that was highly rated but maybe has underachieved in his career, and you just really don't have anybody to lean on like maybe you have in years in the past. So I feel for him. I mean, don't get me wrong, like it sucks when officiating calls go against you, but it's not like, I mean, that just made it 10-3. Like we're all talking about 10-3 at half, at home, at night, and then you didn't have 50 yards of offense. Like, that's my thing.
In many ways, it was 10-3, but at the same time, it felt like, in some ways, it was like, man, Georgia's lucky. It almost felt like Georgia was tied, like, in some ways, because, like, you got through that, and you got outgained by over 100 some yards. I think it was 150 yards in the first half, and you're only down 7. Like, there's a lot of parallels. For the first, 25 minutes of that game, it felt like the Georgia Tech game last year. Georgia Tech's having it their way, doing everything you want. Offense could do anything. They're squatting on the ball, absorbing, hitting body blows, and they're looking for that knockout punch. And up until that quarterback sneak and the fumble, felt like that knockout punch was coming. I think Dan said it. It texted me, like, if they go down 3 scores, like it's going to be tough. And somehow that's what made that fumble so big. And then you go look at how it kind of turned out with the fumble and Georgia getting points at the half, right before the half. It's like, okay, it feels like the SEC championship game. You're only down 6-3, despite being outgained by 200 yards. You haven't done much of anything, and you get the ball after half with a chance to go down there and flip the switch. And that's what it did. The first drive of the second half felt like the flip of the switch. It felt like Gunnar had just come into the game in the SEC championship. The energy was there. Everyone was pumped up. The sideline was in the game. Like, everything. Meanwhile, Auburn's deflated. Auburn's like a balloon that has a hole that's been leaking air for like 30 minutes now, and ain't nothing left. Like, stadium didn't feel as crazy. The most energetic sequence of that half was swag surf in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, did not expect to see the players taking part in swag surf when you're losing in the fourth quarter. Would never see that in some other programs, but apparently it's just a tradition. And then when they had the timeout and the booing, those were the most 2 energetic parts of that half. So look at that for Auburn. But I guess in terms of getting back to the point of all of this, you saw the difference between these two teams. Georgia's been a team that's been there and done that. They showed championship level DNA in terms of resiliency, not getting down on themselves, not letting plays that go against them beat them again. Auburn did not have that. Auburn fumbled on both sides. And like y'all said, apparently it must have came from the very top because their quarterback didn't look that confident anymore. Their head coach apparently didn't look confident anymore. They looked defeated. And that's the biggest indictment of it all, is that you played your best 30 minutes of football all year long and you come out and you shit the bed for the final 30.
I think the thing to me that stands out more than anything else is the level of execution that they had in the second half as opposed to the first half. And I want to start on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line was getting worked. Kobe and I talked earlier today, and it was like they were blocking, they were getting home with 4 a lot, 4 on 5. And then on defensively, they were blocking 6 with 5, so it was a great call by Kobe. But like a lot of the play calls, and Bobo gets a lot of crap now. Schumann is starting to get almost Bobo levels of crap, but Bobo, I felt like, had probably one of his best games in a while. Like, he absolutely dialed up some really good play calls, and there was more to it than just the play call. Like, there was a 4th down, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself.
The speed option.
No, not the speed option. There's a 4th down late in the football game where the entire Auburn defense is keying on Zach Branch. So they run what I call a banana route. They run like a little banana route. But what they did is they put London Humphreys right in behind him, and he almost ghosts that route. Well, Auburn jumps Zach Branch and allows him just to be completely wide open right there in that little soft spot, and he's able to dump the ball. Like, I know it's just a football play, but it's like it's very creative, and it's understanding the game, because he knew that Zach Branch was going to be the focus of that play, and he's able. And what he really wanted to do was hit that route. So he knew that he wouldn't be able to hit it with Zach. So he had London Humphreys just basically trail him and able to hit that ball. Like, I know even McElroy, and I know we just talked about how they weren't the biggest Georgia fans during the game, but he even talked about what a brilliant play call that was. And I agree wholeheartedly. We blocked so much better in the second half. Like those screens that everybody hates so much, they are really effective when they're blocked well. And I know Kobe sent me a text because we were talking, because Harrison was in reporter mode. So we were talking during the game, and when they ran the rocket screen to Branch, who was in motion, and we actually picked up the block, and he got like 10, 12 yards, Kobe. And he texts me, he's like, finally! And he sends me the GIF where it's like, yeah! And go ahead, Kobe, because I mean, like, I just felt like the execution was so much better in the second half.
Yeah, and like you're saying, on that rocket screen, I mean, we've ran it, Harrison. You probably know. We played 6 games. We probably ran it in 5 of it. You know, tried to run it in 5 of it. That either the pass hadn't quite been there, the blocks hadn't quite been there. But it's like he hasn't given up on it. But it's just like finally, when you needed it to come through, it did. And like you're saying, the screens, they were there at times, and then there were also parts of the screens that we were slow on at times. Like Monroe Freeling misses a block that's probably a touchdown
on the throwback screen
to Delp,
on the
right?
throwback screen to Delp. If he makes
Georgia
that block,
has not run. I've never seen Georgia run it.
Correct. If he makes that block, I'm not sure anybody stops Delp from the end zone. It was a great call at a great time, and like you're saying, it's not a bad play call. It's just poorly executed. Same thing. I mean, you're talking about, if I'm thinking that plays a touchdown, and I'm not sure if these are all on the same drive exactly. The Dylan Bell pass, if he just leaves it in the field of play, is a gain of 25 yards, and you're rolling. This game easily, for as bad as it could have been against us, could have easily been 30-10 final, 34-10 final. I mean, we left probably 2 touchdowns late in that game floating out on the field between a couple of poorly executed plays and a couple of untimely penalties. The untimely penalty, real quick, then we'll segue. The Cash Jones block, the reason it's a penalty is because he made it before the ball was thrown by Gunner. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he peeled out to roll to block for Gunner, thinking Gunner's going to run. He threw the block, and then Gunner threw the ball. And so it's not, in my opinion, a blindside block, but it was like offensive pass interference where he's like blocking a defender. If Gunner runs, it's clean, in my opinion, but it is what it is.
Well, and I actually just pulled it up because I didn't realize that was part of the rule in terms of that. Because it's like they call it a blindside block, and I'm watching it, and I mean 16 sees him the whole way. Like 16 knows he's there, and it's not till the last second he kind of turns his head and they get shoulder to shoulder. But he knows Cash Jones is there, and I'm like, how is that? And I think another part of it is 16 stays down afterwards, which I think probably has a big effect on it. Like 16 stays down. He's hurt. Obviously, he got his bell rung right there.
He got his feelings hurt.
Yeah. But I'm just like, man, that's a huge call in that game. And I don't remember, is this the drive where Woodring missed the field goal, or was this the drive where Woodring hit it? Okay. No. So, I mean, it turns out to be a 7-point swing because with where Colby got that ball, Georgia's punching that thing in the end zone, and you're going up 2 scores. And, we may not even be having a discussion later in the show about the drive, the death march to end that game with, Gunner Stockton rubbing in Cam Newton's face with the Superman dive to call game in this. Like, we may not even be having that discussion at this point.
So I don't want to take anything that they said on TV last night as gospel because they were kind of all over the place. But they said that was the longest scoring drive in UGA football history. A time of possession drive.
I know it
like I
definitely
said,
was for this year, but you may be right because I think I heard somebody talk about that last night in the box.
Because it was like 9 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
8 minutes and 45 seconds taken off the clock.
The longest touchdown scoring drive?
Yeah. Touchdown
Okay.
scoring drive.
Okay. I could see that. I mean, it was a long.
That wouldn't shock me.
It was
a
death
drive.
march. It was old school. Hey,
it was just body blows. I mean, it was body blow after body blow. There was no explosive in that play. The biggest explosive was the 17-yarder to London on third down. After that, it was hey, a chunk here, a chunk there, 2-yard run, 3-yard run, 9-yard screen to Zachariah, excuse me. He doesn't like Zach. Is it Zachariah? It was just body blows.
Quick poll for the podcast. Does anybody in here think Gunner should have slid and let the clock run out, or are you happy to see him Superman across
Screw that. Take get in the end zone, dude.
That was the main talking point from our announcer friends, that was a mental error by Gunner by scoring on that play. That he should have slid and you could have kneeled out the clock and won by 3 and got out of there.
Kirby was upset in the press conference that he didn't. He said we had to needlessly play defensive plays, and opened ourselves up to potential injuries and stuff like that. But man, listen, if you've ever been in that situation before, you have an opportunity to score. And then I'm not going to say that it was on his mind, but God dang it, I hope it was. On Cam Newton night,
he 100%. He 100% knew he was doing it. He 100% did. I wish, Dan. I wish I realized what that was before we interviewed Gunner, because I would have asked him. I would 100%. I was like, hey, take me through the dive. Like, you know what you did, like. So, and look, I've talked to Gunner.
He would have smiled and said no.
Yeah, like he wasn't going to give us a real answer. But I mean, it's not a coincidence. It's definitely not a coincidence, right?
No, and
listen,
you're never
gonna. The moxie in Gunner is never gonna take that knee or that slide. Like they have grinded all night on that drive. Well, they've grinded all night. He earned every bit of scoring that touchdown, and that would be, your head ball coach may say like you had to needlessly play defense, but he earned every ounce of getting to score that touchdown.
Oh, he's definitely not getting in trouble for that at all. And I thought it was kind of funny that Kirby mentioned that there were probably some people who had money on the game that were really happy that they scored that touchdown. So, Kirby,
I need to ask. Oh, go ahead, Sid. I was going to say, I need to ask. There's this photo that Kate got for UJ Sports. I used this on my piece. I wanted to ask when this was taken. Was this after he scored the touchdown? Because he is fired up. Fired up. I don't know. I'd be curious. If that's after the touchdown run, it wouldn't shock me. It would be like 21 Orange Bowl where he's just absolutely letting Stetson have it at the end of the half.
No, one of my biggest takeaways for this week was I found out that Kirby 100% knows lines, because he talked about there was projected to be, what did he say, 7 one-score games this week?
Six one-score games.
One-score. So he knows that stuff. Now it makes me even madder, because I'm 100% convinced now that he figures out where the money's at and he goes the other way just to F with us. Because like when I heard him say he knows the lines, I was like, you son of a bitch. But anyway,
he's pulling a Mark Stoops, what you're saying?
Yeah. So I really felt like Bobo had a really good game calling. I felt like Schumann did a great job of not making adjustments, but getting the defense right. And I just thought the level of execution was so high in the second half, and I was really, really happy to see that. And like you said, Kobe, the biggest thing is that we understand now that this team just has no quit in them at all. the cardiac canines, as you accurately called them earlier before Harrison joined us, which I think is a great one. But oh, shit. We cannot end this podcast without saying, where was Chauncey Bowens? The man scores a touchdown and does not get back on the field again, and nobody asked Kirby about it. Like, what in the hell?
I'm gonna be honest. After doing what I just did an hour on the other show, I think we came to the conclusion it was a combination of he had that bust on protection,
But that was early.
on that first, very early. But so is that a combination of Georgia wasn't running it well and they wanted guys with better pass catching abilities out of the backfield, and I'm also wondering if maybe he's a little banged up. I think it could be a combination of the 3 or 4.
He's your best.
But I do, yeah. He's the best pure running back.
I'm all about him getting in trouble for missing the.
But I agree
protection.
with the sentiment. It's bullshit if you held him out for that.
Yes.
But then again, you held Nate Frazier out for the fumble versus Bama, and I get it. That was a much bigger play in the game. And Chauncey was hot, and there was no particular hot hand in this game.
But I guess my thing is Chauncey still, up until this point in the season, makes those methodical runs. He always gives them an opportunity to be more. Those hard, tough yards that we talk about, McCray and Frazier go and get, like, he can turn that 3-yard gain into a 10-yard gain to a 12-yard gain constantly.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see what the answer is. I'm assuming someone will ask Kirby about that. I was actually, now you bring it up, shocked that it wasn't asked about post game. But then again, that's the type of question you ask Kirby post game, and he's going to be like a little sarcastic toward you. So I'm not particularly shocked in that sense. But
the other thing I found out is Kirby hates that Allison Monostrano or whatever from Channel 2 News. Holy shit. That's 2 weeks in a row. He can't stand that woman. Which I'm here for.
Is she who asked him about him standing up on the table and like celebrating?
Oh yes.
He was pretty snarky with her about the you've never seen me have that kind of energy after a game. Show of hands in here. Who's seen me do that down at Georgia, Florida? Who's seen me jump into the crowd? And then he answers the question, but ask a dumb question, you get a little bit of a dumb answer, and then he gives you a real answer. So
she gets it because when she goes to interview players, she cuts in front of everybody. She puts herself in the shot. She stays in the shot. She's absolutely annoying. And I'm like just do your fucking job. It's not about
I will say that's not just specific to her in terms of being in the shot in these interviews. I've noticed that with a lot of the TV people. I don't know. Maybe that's how they all do it. I don't know. I have my own.
She makes it about her, Harrison. It's all about her, and it's fucking annoying. I'm sorry, that's 2, but it's. I was
little
so
Dan rant just off schedule.
Dan ran on Channel 2 News.
I was so happy when Kirby verbally bitch slapped her on television.
Good Lord! All right, that's gonna be interesting. Let's move on. Well, first, I guess, lastly, to wrap up, because I know we do want to talk about the news of the day. It's crazy. You go into halftime, and Georgia's getting outgained 237-78. You end it, Georgia outgains Auburn 296-277. And there's still going to be people that say, "Oh, the refs handed Georgia the game." Okay, I get it. You had some calls go against Auburn, and I get it, but Auburn also got outplayed in that half. Auburn went from averaging 5.2 yards on the ground to averaging 3.9. And that's on similar attempts. They actually increased their attempts in the second half. 36 attempts compared to 25 in the first half. Georgia played much better. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong cue. My bad. It was actually Auburn went from averaging 5.2 per carry in the first half to averaging 0.9 in the second half. They had 40 yards of offense in the second half. compared to Georgia's 218. Georgia dominated the game down the stretch in the second half. Like I get it. There were some bad calls in this game that people don't like. Iffy officiating, bad officiating at various times. But Georgia won this game. Georgia dominated this game in the second half. And I know you already touched on it, but man, wouldn't it just be nice if we could see this team play a full game against a top level opponent? Maybe that's this weekend. We'll dive into that on Wednesday. I have a good feeling about Saturday because I'm gonna shut up.
That may be Harrison. That may be the first time we've ever done this show, Harrison, that you've said that out loud that I've heard. That you have like a really good feeling against a top opponent going into a Saturday. And I don't know if that's just like your like mindset, but I feel like the last couple big games you've been like, I'm a little shaky. Dogs got me worried.
Look, the first half, like it caught them versus Bama, it got them in trouble. And there's the element of they already had a big home game at home and it didn't solve the slow starts. But then I'm like, okay, they played Kentucky also, which Kentucky's not an Alabama or Ole Miss, but they started fast in that game. Then there's the other part of, hey, it's Alabama. We know what happens to Georgia when they play Alabama over the last few years. Like, there's an element of that's the boogeyman, and I think it's a little bit mental, maybe more from a coaching perspective than a player. I think you see a Georgia performance more similar to Kentucky versus Ole Miss than you do versus Alabama. That's my thoughts right now. Maybe a lot of it will depend on the injury updates in terms of what the offensive line looks like. I don't particularly know much. I'm going to have to study a little bit up on Ole Miss. I haven't watched much of Ole Miss, so I can't tell you. The difference in that game last year was their front seven was drastically better than Georgia's. Can Georgia have a better performance versus an Ole Miss defensive line? I don't know what Ole Miss defensive line looks like, but I feel better about this game considering I think the atmosphere is going to be there. I think this team is realizing that I think they know better than anybody. They can't continue to play this way and expect to be, fulfill their goals. At some point, I think something will click. I don't know what it is, but at some point, we're early enough in the year, Dan, where we're not going to be saying you are what you are at this point. We're a few games away from saying you are what you are.
We're pretty dang close. I mean, when the head ball coach says you are what you are in the post-game presser, I'm feeling like you're getting pretty close. When he verbatim puts it out there, hey, we're not in a highly explosive team that's going to take the ball in 3 to 4 plays consistently and score. We've got to be methodical. I was very shocked to hear him say that in the post game presser. I mean,
that's the first time he's kind of admitted in terms of like, hey, we're going to lose the explosive battle. He talks about the explosives all the time.
Yeah. All right. Let's transition.
He's happy about Ole Miss. Have you heard the new Ole Miss song?
No, I haven't heard the new Ole Miss song.
Don't get us a copyright strike.
No, it's Trinidad, throw another dime. Ole Miss is happy on Island Time. Nice. It's like a reggae song. Uh-huh. It's actually really freaking catchy. I sent it to Harrison. He doesn't watch half the songs.
He doesn't love you anymore.
He doesn't.
It depends on when you send it. I don't even remember you sending me in.
Like Monday or Tuesday.
But
yeah, what I was going to say about that is we're still finding out a lot about Ole Miss, right? Because they've had to make some changes, but we'll talk about that on Wednesday.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about it real quick.
Now for the news that everybody is rocked the college football world. I'm not going to lie to you.
Before you say it, Harrison, before the season, what did I say that James Franklin was?
I don't remember. What did you say he was?
What did I say Penn State is every year?
Oh, they're a paper tiger.
A fraud.
100%. They are, and I told Katie this, and when I've explained different things, because God love my wife, she enrolled at the University of Georgia in 2017 to play soccer. She has only known the glory days of Georgia football. That's her whole fandom is the glory days. And when we talk about Penn State, and we talk about James Franklin, and since I've met her, and we've gone to a couple Penn State games, I keep up with them probably as like my second team, if you even count it as that. It feels like they're stuck in the Mark Richt era of football, right? Like they are, and not saying that James Franklin and Mark Richt are 1 for 1, but just when you talk about like in big game situations, when the pressure's on, Penn State teams tend to crack, and then they let those cracks roll over into other games. Like, there is no reason they should have gone to UCLA and lost. There's no reason they should have lost Northwestern. They have a better roster top to bottom than both of those teams do. It is purely on the coach and what he's allowed to leak into that locker room and the belief of that locker room. And so, I mean, I think ultimately that's what happens, right? Like, you have a guy that plays a double overtime game against a top 5 opponent 3 weeks ago, and he's lost the 2 since then, and you got to go. It's time. They're taking the ultimate risk, right? Their good is no longer good enough to Penn State's athletic department. They want to be great at Penn State. So it'll be interesting to see who they go after. I don't know. I've heard Matt Rule kind of early. I've heard Matt Rule's name, but man, if you want to be great and go win championships, like, what's Matt Rule won in his life?
Well, the names that I saw were Kirk Signetti, which, I mean, to be completely honest, if you're him, this is like the strike while the iron's hot. But, you know, I saw College Football Today or whatever put out that there are people around the program that are willing to pay whatever the cost is to get Nick Saban to come out of retirement and coach Penn State. And then I saw Urban Meyer's name mentioned. I think this ship has sailed on Urban Meyer. I think he's been out of the game too long.
I mean, you would have to think that after they had one of the most infamous coordinators in college football history, they wouldn't want to have a dirty, nasty coach as well, right? Like,
they want to win football games.
Surely someone along life's way could say, hey, there's got to be a better option than Urban Meyer floating around.
You know, the name that I think should be connected to some of these bigger jobs is Whittingham. There's obviously a reason that he's never left Utah, because he's been ultra successful there. You know, like the oh gosh, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank. There was a coach that was a really, really big name coach, and he just wouldn't leave where he was at because his daughter had some health issues, and the community that they were in had like the best hospital for what she had. I think he ended up taking a Washington job, but a Boise State's coach. That's who it was.
Chris Peterson.
Yes. And yeah, the what was tying him or tethering him to that job for such a long time was that. But there has to be a reason why Whittingham's not leaving Utah. You know, and sometimes it's, I've got a good job here. I'm winning. You know, maybe not to the levels that I could win somewhere else, but I'm winning. I have zero pressure here because everybody loves me. Why would I put my head between the vice where if I lose one game, I'm going to get fired, where I could stay here forever? That definitely has to be part of it. But
that's a big thing I feel like about Signetti. I mean, they signed him to a massive, massive deal with a massive buyout, right? We'll see if Penn State's willing to pay the buyout to go get Signetti, but I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to make a splash, and I feel like it could be, you know, somebody big or whatever, but Penn State's definitely, they're going to try. It's not going to be a safe hire. It's going to try to be a home run hire.
Yeah, you can't go get the hot assistant. That's not this job. But yeah, I guess I have a question for you guys. What does this mean for James Franklin? Does he fall forward and get another big job? I saw somebody connected in the dots where he might end up being the next coach at Florida if it opens up. Like that just feels like too rich for me.
I mean, look, I think it hurts him a little bit in terms of getting a job at Florida. Like right now, I don't think Florida's going to go hire a fired Penn State coach. Granted, he did just make the college football playoff last year, and maybe you can sell it to the fan base in terms of like, hey, this guy took him that way, and that's where we want to go. But I mean, from Florida's perspective, it's like, how do you sell that? How do you win? How do you win the boosters over? How do you win over the fan base, the messaging in terms of, hey, we just got a national championship contending coach? Like, you really can't sell that right now. Florida wants to contend. But then again, with where Florida's at, it's kind of like, hey, we just want some consistency. And maybe the argument becomes, if we give him the resources, maybe he can be that. But I'm curious on James
no
Franklin.
Way. If you parted ways with Dan Mullen the way they did, I don't see the boosters and the fan base being all behind James Franklin. You know what I mean? Like if a couple comments about not recruiting in season were good enough to get Mullen fired, like I don't see not winning the big game as your MO as a head coach also being good enough to get you down in Florida. Now I can see it landing you at like an Arkansas for sure. You know, a place that's begging for that stability of an 8-win season constantly. But I just feel like, man, we're talking about a $54 million buyout. I'd imagine the man's going to take a year-long break and kind of reevaluate where he is and where he wants to be over the next 10 years of his life. Does he want to coach? Does he want to be a coordinator again? Does he want to be just a head coach? Is he willing to be a head coach at a lesser school? I mean, there's just so many questions you have to ask when he had so much success at Vanderbilt, and he has had success at Penn State. He's been a successful coach. I mean, he's probably the second best coach in Penn State history. I would say he is the second best coach in Penn State history.
It just got away from him this year.
It did. The preseason expectations got away from him and what they did going forward. If they were 5-1 right now, he'd be happy as he could be, just rolling along.
Did you see the pictures that Game Day posted where it was like it was him? They were on game day. They said this picture was taken 15 days ago, and like everybody was extremely happy. Like it's just amazing how time flies. You know, Kirby mentioned that during his press conference about how he talked with Hugh Freeze before the game about how it's so stressful where, you know, they have to win every single week. And if they don't, you know, like you get fired for losing one game. And I thought that was interesting because I've never heard him say that before. And he talked about how Hugh Freeze is one of his best friends, which I was completely unaware that was the case. And we all know that he's really good friends with Lane, that is always going to be funny to me that Kirby and Lane are friends. And I know they coach together, but the fact that they're legitimately friends because they are so different than one another. I'm excited for this game this coming up week, but you know who has got to be just dumb luck is like a guy like Clark Lee, who's at Vanderbilt, who's doing a really, really good job, right? He's got them rolling. Like, he is not an option at Vanderbilt at Penn State because they're like, we are not hiring another Vanderbilt coach. There's no way you can convince the alumni that's a good decision. But I think that guy parlays that into a job, don't you? Because I don't think you can stay at Vanderbilt long term because I think you're eventually things are going to come around and you're not going to be able to win at a high level. So I think unless you just want to stay there forever, a guy like Clark Lee probably has to strike while the iron's hot a little bit. But I think there are a couple good names. But like Harrison, what would be your name if you're Penn State? Like, what is the name that you want?
How can you not? I think right now for Penn State with their situation, like I know they have some good high school football, but I think the problem there right now is it's an interesting recruiting base. It's not particularly your strong one. Like Ohio State has a little bit more national appeal. They do that well. I think at Penn State right now, what they need to do is they need to go get a guy that can build that recruiting base, have a brand like that. But right now, I think it's like, hey, you got to get somebody who's an elite operator in the portal and maybe somebody who's familiar with that conference. And right now, all the directions point to Kirk Cignetti being the guy. Somebody who's done it at Indiana, done it twice now. I didn't give Indiana a chance in that game versus Oregon. I thought Oregon was going to roll. And got probably one of the best portal quarterbacks there is right now, Fernando Mendoza. Beat Georgia out for him. To me, you go get Kirk Cignetti. That should be your number one. I like Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule's good. I've honestly been a little shocked that it's taken this long to get Nebraska back to where it should be, and it's not totally back. But to me, you can't go fire James Franklin and hire Matt Rule. I think if you're going to fire James Franklin, you need to go get a guy like a Kirk Cignetti Or you say, okay, we're going to do what Georgia did, and we're going to take a chance. We're going to go get a hot young coordinator. And right now, I don't think there's many across college football that are hot young coordinators, but one that kind of opens eyes, and I could kind of see it, kind of like how Georgia's defense was a problem the last few years under Rick. Maybe you go do the inverse, and you say, all right, our offense has been holding us back. Who's one of the best offensive coordinators in college football right now? Will Stein over there at Oregon. Now, it's a gamble. He doesn't have head coaching experience, and I haven't seen him connect to this job, but I'm assuming that's going to be a guy that maybe this year, maybe next year is in conversation for some of these jobs, and he should be. He's one of the best offensive coordinators in college football right now.
A name that hasn't gotten any attention at all is Tommy Rees. That name was a hot name for a minute, and then he kind of disappeared. And I believe he's with Lane Kiffin. No, that's not right. That's the son of the old Notre Dame coaches with him. Tommy Rees where is Tommy Rees at now? Is he at Texas?
Let me double check. I think he was in the pros for a little bit. He is the Browns offensive coordinator right now.
All right. So Tommy Rees is a name that was really hot for a minute. He kind of disappeared. All right. Now listen, this one is really, really, now obviously I don't think he's in line for Penn State or Florida or any one of those other places, but there's a new kid on the block who is picking up a lot of attention. Rick Neuheisel's son at UCLA with zero time to prepare pulls off a massive upset last week. 1 week to prepare, absolutely beat the shit out of Michigan State. Listen, he's the son of a coach. He has been around it his entire life. You can call it nepotism if you want, but the first opportunity this kid has to call plays, other than the fact he doesn't know how to use the microphone, is absolutely lighting it up with a really flawed, really bad football team that was anemic on offense. All of a sudden, they're electric on offense. So I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how quickly he gets an opportunity. I think we learned from Lane Kiffin a long time ago that giving a guy a job before they're ready is a really bad thing. Somebody is going to get him at some point. And, I think the pedigree is there because Rick Neuheisel was a good football coach. I mean, I think people forget that Rick Neuheisel was actually a really good football coach. But this kid is doing a tremendous job. Like, I had no reason to pay attention to UCLA, and I looked them up on the ESPN Score app, and I was like, hey, what the hell did UCLA do today? And I only looked them up for one reason only.
Real quick, because I know we're already going an hour 20. Well, I've only been here for like 45 minutes of that, but I don't know if it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a Big Ten job, but we're starting to see Eli Drinkwitz start getting some mention with some jobs. That's a guy that obviously has done really good things at Mizzou. Then comes the argument of, okay, he's got Mizzou to like a perennial 10-win, 9-win program over there. What can he do when he's given the resources? What can he do if he goes takes a Florida job? What can he do? I don't think Penn State's a fit for him. I don't know if they'll consider him. Honestly, I'd be shocked if they go to the Southeast Conference to find a coach again. I think they need to find somebody that has some ties in the Northeast because I think those guys are having the better success up there because they know that place. Then again, there's the Dan Lanning argument at Oregon. Dan Lanning's done tremendous at Oregon. But I'll be curious what the Eli Drinkwitz market's like this offseason. If that Florida job, Fran Brown's another one. That's a good shout, Dan. But I also kind of wonder, for a Penn State perspective, has that starlight dimmed a little bit because they're not like if they were looking like they're going to cruise to 10 wins again. I think you hear that conversation. But
I think the big thing is, like you're saying, a guy like Drink, he's going to reignite the offense that maybe has been missing up there. And then he's done a really good job of portaling in the defense. You know what I mean? Like he has the offense under control, and then they're really spending the big bucks portaling in the defense. I thought they were a couple plays away from possibly winning the game this weekend against Alabama. So, I mean, like you're saying, I think that going forward up there, you have to look at what works for you and what maybe you've been lacking, right? Like when Georgia hired Coach Smart, what had been lacking the last 5-6 seasons, a defense, right? Like you had to shore up recruiting and a defense, and that's what Kirby did in his first 5 years. Up at Penn State, I would say you have to an offense from this, century, and some
You can't be a
recruiting.
window program. You can't be a window program anymore. Like you have to go from because they decided if he can't win with this team, he's not going to win with any others. I think that was the decision they made because this was the year they were building up to all along the last few years. So you have to find somebody that can take you out of that window program. Like you can't be in every 3 or 4 years. They want to be in every year.
Well, and to me, they don't have the players, just to deep dive a little bit, they don't have the players on the perimeter to go and make a lot of consistent plays for Drew Aller, yet their names were not mentioned for almost any wide receiver in the portal. I mean, like you're saying, Dane Key at Nebraska, Noah Thomas here. I mean,
they got the Pena kid from Syracuse, and I don't know how well he's doing, but I mean that was it. They took Pena and I think 1 or 2 others, and that was it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you think it's your year, this is supposed to be your year, you write the checks. You ask them how much they want later, but you write the checks and you say, "Hey, man, we want somebody that's a difference maker to take the top off of defense, and we want 3 of them if we think we got it." And I think that's the thing in the era of the portal. Like, there are going to be years that you have to write the checks to really extend what the team, maybe the bones of the team, can do.
Yeah. All right. I got a wild notion, wild idea, wild theory. And I'm just going to pose it to you. And this will be the last thing, unless y'all have something else, then we'll wrap it up. Hypothetical. If Dabo and Clemson at the end of this year decide, hey, we want to walk away, we want to mutually part ways, and if they do what I thought Penn State and James Franklin were going to do, I didn't think James Franklin was going to get fired midseason. I thought they were going to let James Franklin ride it out and come to a mutual agreement to part ways. What if Clemson decides, hey, we're going to mutually part ways, although we all know Dabo doesn't want to leave, but if he feels like he has to leave, he'll leave. Does Penn State look at Dabo and say, hey, I know they've fallen off the last few years, but he's a title winner, 2-time title winner. Can they sell that higher? Is that a sellable hire for a team, for a program that's been perennial 10 wins but hasn't been great, like elite? Is that a sellable hire? Can you sell that?
Sure, absolutely. And can Clemson hired James Franklin.
Ooh.
And they just basically swapped coaches.
Here's my question, right? And this will be fun to ask y'all because I know how I feel about this. Dabo Swinney won his way, the anti-Saban way, for both of his championships that he played in. He also had 2 generational quarterbacks in college during their time. Both guys probably very much Heisman caliber players, NFL caliber players, obviously, and they had some freaks on the outside when they won them. They also had some phenomenal defenses. Since the last championship, and I don't know if it's his fault or the development's fault, I think Venables leaving has been a lot harder on that program than people realize. But I think his inability in the portal to have success and his inability to recruit and develop a quarterback at this point is eerily similar to what they're leaving with James Franklin.
Fair. It was only this year that Dabo decided to finally take a notable portal name.
And tell me who that is real quick. You know what I mean?
Is it just you're taking a James Franklin but with 2 national championships? Is that what that is? For Clemson, it's like, hey, are you taking Dabo Swinney without the championships? Can you do that? See, here's my issue, boys, with both of these conversations. And this is maybe it's because of hindsight and I'm not thinking about it, but for both Clemson and Penn State, I struggle to say there's a hire out there that is 100% realistic hire out there that is 100% an upgrade over what you have currently. I think there's a lot of high upside candidates with Franklin, but I think that's the hire they tried to make back when they hired James Franklin. Was like, hey, this guy was winning at Vandy, and there's upside here. If we give him the resources, can he do it? I don't know if there is a bona fide better than Franklin right now. Maybe it's the guy.
Cignetti.
Maybe it's Cignetti. Maybe that's the best case.
Oh yeah, I mean Cignetti's best case scenario, but I mean
for every school. Except for Florida. Florida has one person in mind.
Yeah, and can they land him?
I don't think they can, man. I think his daughter has got him locked down.
My question is he not a name that gets tossed around the cap to get out of the SEC?
Here's the new thing, Dan. The new thing in that equation. Does Whit Weeks have the daughter locked down? So now the pressure's off Lane to be sticking home.
Man, they're too young.
Damn it! I thought I was getting a damn it boy. I got a little he looked at the side for a minute. I thought I got him.
No, I think she's way too popular for that to be a long-term thing. But I don't mean it that way. No, Kobe, pump the fucking brakes. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying she is too famous. I don't know, but I think if you watched and Harrison had to remind me about it, which is crazy because you would have thought I would have been on it day one. But Harrison had to remind me to watch that Lane documentary, which is really good. Give it ESPN some free advertising. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it. It's really good. It's well done. Harrison, who doesn't watch anything, watched it before me, and he texted me like, "Bro, now get on it," and it was worth it. But I think, listen, I've talked. I'm on record. If Lane goes to Florida, that's scary as hell.
2 times a year, or
that is
once
frightening. That is frightening if he goes down there because they have everything they need.
And that's the thing. It's just with the Florida job. I get it. It's been a shit show these last 2 years. But I look at Florida much the same way we looked at A&M a few years ago. You have everything right there you need to be successful. You just need the right guy. And I think A&M has the right guy right now. Can Florida find the right guy? Penn State. I think Penn State. I don't know if I put Penn State and Florida in the same upper echelon of, hey, do you have everything you need right there? I don't know Penn State's NIL situation. I don't know what the struggles have been, if the shortcomings have been purely a principle thing on Franklin's part, an inability to adapt, or if they have everything. But I look at Florida and I say, hey, they have everything they need to be a winner.
Well, one thing historically that's always been kind of a talked about thing is that the East Coast teams get way more of a media advantage, money advantage than the West Coast teams because they're on later, blah, blah, blah. What if Lincoln Riley was like, F this USC place, I'm going to go back to the East Coast?
That's a guy that nobody's talking about in terms of is he on the hot seat? Because
I don't know if he is or he isn't.
But, 3 months ago, everyone said he was.
He just dog walked Michigan, so I don't think so.
Sherrone Moore leaves Michigan because Michigan wants to move on, but I don't think he gets a Penn State job if he moves on.
God, no.
Nope.
No. I think
Auburn boys, I'm eating ice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. Dan hasn't eaten. That's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Top podcast. I'm Harris Sereno. That's Dan Kiley, Kobe Piers. I'm going to have to go back and watch the intro. I like the last time these two guys kicked it off by themselves. The intro was different and it was funny. I'll have to go back and watch it. Anyways, we'll be back Wednesday at 7:30 here on the Top podcast. We'll see you next, or I was about to say next week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Damn it.
Go Dogs. Ba, 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 ba.